All right, let's jump straight into this explainer and see if we can decode the fascinating science behind what actually makes relationships thrive, or, completely crash and burn over the long haul. We all know love is a wildly powerful emotion, right? But keeping that spark alive? Yeah, that takes a whole lot more than just fairy tale magic.
I mean, just think about it. With the divorce rate in the US hovering right around that 50% mark, it really begs a huge question. Are there actual learnable skills that make love last? Well, spoiler alert, it turns out it isn't just about luck or stumbling across the perfect soulmate. The data actually shows that relationship longevity relies on some very specific, actionable psychological tools.
So, here is our roadmap for today. 1. The science of bonding. 2. Emotional intelligence over time. 3. The power of vulnerability. 4. Resolving relationship conflict. And 5. The daily habits for intimacy. Let's get into it.
Starting with part 1, the science of bonding, understanding the foundation. Let's take a quick look at the psychology of love and how human bonding actually evolves.
Now, researcher Robert Sternberg makes this really fascinating distinction. He points out that while manifest intimacy, those super observable things like holding hands or constantly going on dates, might naturally decrease over time, latent intimacy actually grows. That's the deep, invisible, emotional bond underneath it all. So a quiet relationship, it isn't necessarily a failing one.
But here's the catch. Because we can't always literally see that latent intimacy, long-term couples might mistakenly feel totally disconnected. The research shows that introducing just minor elements of change, like, say, taking a joint vacation or picking up a new shared hobby, completely interrupts that daily stagnation. It shakes things up and rapidly reveals just how incredibly strong that underlying bond truly is.
Okay, moving right along to part 2, emotional intelligence over time, the critical mid-stage. Let's see how our emotional needs dramatically shift the second that initial honeymoon phase inevitably fades.
There's this fantastic study on college-age couples by researcher Lisa Millman, and it perfectly illustrates that relationships progress through very distinct stages. Basically, the tools you rely on at month 2 are completely different from the tools you're going to need at month 10.
In fact, the study revealed a massive spike in emotional intelligence needs right around the 5 to 10 month mark. And honestly, it makes perfect sense. This is exactly when the honeymoon phase ends, real conflicts start to bubble up, and partners suddenly have to negotiate their core values.
For college students actively navigating this exact transition, building emotional trust is absolutely vital. This means practicing emotional clarity to handle intense academic stress and actively managing negative moods so they don't just bleed right into the relationship. If you had a completely terrible day studying, simply recognizing that anxiety and telling your partner prevents you from accidentally taking it out on them. It's a total game changer.
Which brings us to part 3, the power of vulnerability, the secret weapon. So, how do we actually navigate this tricky mid-stage? Well, it is all about building a safe, totally non-judgmental space together.
There is a massive, measurable contrast in how our brains handle this. Guarded behavior, it just creates emotional distance, worry, and very confusing mixed signals. But emotional honesty, it actually triggers strong, positive activity in your brain. Dropping the mask literally helps both you and your partner physically relax and stay fully engaged.
By simply using short, brutally honest phrases like, "I feel worried," or "I need help right now," you completely remove fear from the equation. It invites your partner to respond with authentic empathy rather than throwing up their defenses. Truth just becomes so much more valuable than trying to keep up a polished image.
All right, part 4, resolving relationship conflict, a masterclass. But what happens when that vulnerability breaks down and you're suddenly facing high-stakes conflict? Let's look at the clinical data.
Dr. John Gottman's famous research on newlyweds found that a negative startup, meaning a conversation that immediately escalates from neutral into harsh criticism, is a massive predictor of divorce. Basically, the way an argument begins almost entirely dictates exactly how it's going to end.
And get this, here is a truly surprising fact. The classic therapy advice of active listening, calmly paraphrasing your partner's complaints back to them, is incredibly difficult and almost never used by happy couples in the heat of an actual argument. Expecting a couple to do emotional gymnastics while they are absolutely furious, it just isn't realistic.
Instead, Gottman outlines a much simpler, highly actionable sequence for having honest, high-stakes conversations. First, begin with a softened, gentle startup.
Second, ensure the other partner actually accepts that influence rather than rejecting it. And third, actively work to de-escalate that low-intensity negativity. It's all about gently tapping the brakes before the car completely spins out of control.
The physiological data backing this up is absolutely mind-blowing. In stable, happy couples, acts of validation or even just a bit of shared humor literally lowered their heart rates in real time. When you use a softened startup, you aren't just changing the conversation. You are literally physically calming your partner's nervous system down.
And finally, part 5, daily habits for intimacy, fostering long-term safety. Let's explore how you maintain that soothing emotional connection every single day.
The research is crystal clear on this. Emotional safety doesn't actually come from grand, sweeping gestures. It grows through simple, rapid-fire daily habits. We're talking things like undistracted listening, small daily check-ins, and expressing steady, consistent gratitude. These tiny little moments prevent quiet tension from ever taking root, building a massive foundation of trust.
Psychologists call the result of these habits attunement. It ensures both partners feel perfectly understood and highly valued across the entire lifespan of the relationship. When you're truly attuned, you don't have to sit there and guess what your partner's feeling. You are already completely on their wavelength.
And listen, this isn't just nice-sounding psychology theory. It is literally hardwired into our biology. From rodent studies to human fMRI brain scans, the neurobiology confirms it all. A committed partnership built on these exact principles provides profound, deeply long-term benefits for your physical and mental health.
So the main thing to take away from this explainer is to take a hard look at your own relationship timeline and ask yourself, are your daily habits building a wall of defense or a lasting bridge of vulnerability? It's a choice you make every single day. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.